Hello and welcome to the Property Business Podcast. Joining James Hughes, Jonathan Woods and myself, James George, is the guy who was responsible to the launch and rise of eXp in the UK. Now he's the international expansion leader for the UK, Europe and India. Welcome to the podcast, Adam Day. How are you this morning?
Very good, thanks. Thanks for having me. That's a mouthful, isn't it, that title?
That was a mouthful. It's a very important role you've got now, Adam. They've made it really long for you.
Well, that's what Americans tend to do. You'll know that, James, but they love giving out fancy long titles. So I'm happy to accept it as well.
Change it to the Don. I think that's probably the best way of putting it.
So tell us about your new role. What does that entail?
Really just looking out for and working with the country leaders in the countries that we're in. So what we got: France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, Greece, Germany, Poland, Israel and India. I think I might have missed one, so apologies if I have. And I think that's really to try and work with those guys to figure out what's best practice in those countries and how we're going to bring more agents over, but also how we're going to help more agents sell more real estate and more properties. And then being part of launching new countries. So if we find the right people and in the right country that has a big enough marketplace, then it'll be assisting that person to open that country and to sort of coach them on how best to open that country and what best to do to scale it up. And it's been interesting. It's been 5-6 weeks now. It's been really interesting to find out more about different countries, how they work, and what we can do that works in the UK that might work somewhere else, but maybe it didn't work either. So it's been a fascinating learning journey so far. I've not really implemented a huge amount. Just been trying to learn over the last 4 or 5 weeks.
Sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say, what have you noticed is a main difference between the way that the UK operates versus the rest of Europe? I mean, obviously, there's a big difference between the US and us, but there's also a lot of similarity as well, which I really like.
Yeah, I think there's a few differences. Probably one of the main ones is the listings, exclusive versus non-exclusive. So they have the portal challenge across the whole of Europe. There's no MLSs in those countries particularly that anyone uses. It's portals just like it is over here in the UK. But so in Spain and France they've got Idealista. They've then got another one in France called Selage, and then they've got another one in Portugal called Greenacres, and they've got different portals, right? Just like we've got Rightmove Super on the market. But the main problem, the main challenge, I think, is the exclusive listings versus non-exclusive listings. So you have, in most countries, not in Germany, not in the UK, but in most other countries, you've got 60% of properties that are non-exclusive, or as we would call them, open listings. And so because then, with the portals, they charge per property, you have agents that are listing like 10 houses that are on with like 4 other agents. So you've got it's listed multiple times on the portals. And so from a brokerage point of view, we're paying for those listings. From an agent point of view, they're selling less of those listings because they're not exclusive. Sole agency, as we would say in the UK. So that's been a real head spinner, that one, to try and get my head around of how you fix that. And I don't think you can, because culturally in Spain it's very open listing. In France it's open listings. That's pretty normal how to do that. But it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't look good for the customer. You've got your property listed 5 times with 5 different agents. Imagine that in the UK. We would say to the client, get that property off the market with those other agents. That's a real challenge, and that's a cultural thing that I don't think we will be able to challenge it, to be honest. But that's probably the biggest difference I'm seeing. One of the biggest differences. There's many others, but that's one of the biggest.
Tell us about your history in real estate just quickly, Adam, and tell us about how you came around to launching eXp in the UK.
Yeah, so I started in an agency in 1997, straight from school. I did a year of dossing around in 96 and 97, then started in a great little business called Country Property down in Hitchin, centre of the universe. And Dave Gallagher was my old boss and still around, still speak to him occasionally. And he was one of my heroes of estate agency. And Paul Dewhurst, another guy who's also still in estate agency, and I still speak to him. Did that for 9 years, and I set up a company called Hatched, which is one of the first online estate agents in the UK. We did have bricks and mortar offices. They were first floor serviced offices rather than... So I can't claim that we were the first fully cloud-based like Glenn does, because we did have locations, but it just wasn't on the high street. So we cut out the expensive high street branches. did that for 9 years, and then we sold that to the Connells Group. We were growing rapidly, not as rapidly as eXp, by the way, but Connells Group acquired that. That was at the point when it was really interesting. Purple Bricks were really growing at a rate. They started in 2014. So Purple Bricks were going like this. And so the corporates were all probably panicking, I would say. So Countrywide did their own version of online estate agency. I know others were looking at it as well. Better not say who, because I think I signed NDAs at the time to say that I wouldn't say. Connells were looking at it as well. And so Connells were looking at acquisition rather than setting up their own sort of Connells digital version. They felt having a separate brand that had already been there and done it would be good for them. And so that was interesting, being acquired by a big corporate. So I did that for about 18 months. I have to say that Connells were fantastic, but you're into your football, James, aren't you? And I know you see it very often when people say, I didn't realise how big that club was. I didn't realise how big Man United were until I got there. And obviously Man United, that's 15 years ago we're talking about now. But, you know, it was the same for me going to Connells. I didn't realise how big they were. I was like a rabbit in the headlights, just didn't have a clue. I was so out of my depth in terms of, you know, understanding the size of that beast. And so yeah, but it was a great learning curve. Did 18 months there, and then did a couple of disastrous jobs with Easy Property and eMove. And then eXp got in touch in, when was that? Early 2019, I suppose. January 2019, they first got in touch and, yeah, sort of showed me the model. Did the classic, you know, introduced me to lots of different agents, three-way calls and stuff like that. And then I went on an interview process with 2 or 3 other people, so I understand. And obviously then got the role in April 2019, launched the business in October, November 2019. So nearly 5 years to the day, more or less.
What were the main issues with setting up in the UK? Because the US system, bringing it over to the UK, as if you'd have just brought it over and just put it in, obviously wouldn't work. You've had to adapt and make changes. And there's been other companies out there that have tried to do a similar thing and not really succeeded. So what were yeah, exactly. Yeah. What were the biggest hurdles for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd kept a close eye on another American model who also launched in 2014, same year as Purple Bricks, actually. And I remember I was on a panel session with them, Keller Williams, I'm sure I can say it. So I was on a panel session with a guy called Mike Coffey from Keller Williams, a guy from Easy Property whose job I took shortly after, and myself, and then someone else. Mike Day was comparing, and there was someone else on the stage. We were talking about the different, you know, models that were breaking through. And when Mike Coffey from Keller Williams said we've got a 63-37 split, I was on stage thinking, shit, this is going to be big. Like this is a problem for us as incumbents. You know, I was online, we were digital, whatever you want to call it, but 63% for the agents. I was thinking, man, this has got legs. And as Leo Pereira, who's the CEO of eXp Realty in the US, he always says, you know, base it on the straw poll of one. There's nothing wrong with basing your views on the straw poll of one of your view. Because if you are an average kind of person, then you've probably got an average kind of view. And I'm a very average kind of person. And so I was sitting there thinking, wow, this has got legs. So anyway, as a bit of an estate agency geek, I looked at that. I watched it for a few years. And you saw Purple Bricks go like that. And you saw Keller Williams go like that. You're thinking, well, Hank, why is that? It's such a compelling model to earn 63%. Like I was thinking of leaving the business that I'd owned to do that. I mean, that's kind of the way I looked at it. And so when eXp got in touch, I kind of had figured out my views of Keller Williams and why it hadn't taken off as much as I thought it probably should do. And that was because they kept using the words real estate and brokerages and closing instead of completion. And they were using American words, right, which didn't resonate with me. I was like, oh, American companies, you know, do one kind of thing. So again, straw poll of one. If I thought that, then many other agents were thinking that. And they were allowing anyone to join. So I'm a big fan of, you know, I don't know, the diffusion of the adoption of innovation. Have you seen that bell curve? You have the innovators, the early adopters, yep. And then you get into the early mass market. The early mass market in any product or service, any new product or services that's disruptive or new, has to see success from the early adopters and the innovators before the early mass market jump in. And so to get the innovators and the early adopters successful, in my opinion, you needed experienced agents. There was no way that, you know, an Uber driver from down the road was going to be a successful agent, and therefore there was no way they could then prove that it was a concept that could work in the UK. Therefore, meaning we were never going to get to the early mass market. And so the 2 years experiences, that's where that came from, was understanding the adoption of innovation, or the diffusion or adoption of innovation, and what I'd seen KW do, which was just allow anyone to join. And of course they will go, oh yeah, but this person was successful and they were a fitness instructor. All right, well, show me the other people that weren't. Show me the other people who joined that haven't been successful. It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20 people with no experience will be successful. That's my very, very, having looked at from the outside looking in, I would say 7 out of 10 experienced agents will be successful. I know which odds I'm going for. And so that's where that whole 2 years experience came in, which I know has been a bit of a, with in America, you just have to get your license. So when the US guys were phoning me, oh, you're opening in the UK, let's go and recruit these people. And well, there's no licensing. Oh, even better, let's go and get these people on board. And I'm saying, no, whoa. 2 years experience. We're not going there.
I'm glad you went down that route, because eXp in the US expanded very quickly, and there are certain areas where it hasn't got the best brand because, like most agencies in the US, they have loads of agents, and as you say, anyone gets their license, and then you've got millions of people that aren't great as well as the really good ones, whereas here you're essentially just allowing the good ones. Compass in the US did a very clever thing where they only allowed if you'd done a certain amount of transactions to join as the main person. And then if you joined as part of a team, which obviously isn't a UK thing yet, which we might get into later, but if you joined as part of a team, then it was okay. But the main bulk of people that joined are experienced agents. So I think that the way that you went down that route has been very successful, because you've got the likes of Jonathan and James joining, who were already doing extremely well, and then have gone on and done even better with the eXp model.
I was going to say, I think the caliber of people that are part of, let's call them, these usually American terms, Adam, and brokerage. I do think they're starting to come in more. Now, I think we've moved with the rise of things like Selling Sunset and all of these other realtor programs that have come up. I think the word real estate is starting to permeate into common language within our industry. I think certainly within London anyway. I think people use it a lot more than they did. You see a lot of people putting it on their LinkedIn and stuff as well. But I think that the quality of those people, the headliners, the people that put themselves forward, the success and the social proof that comes from that is so important about building brand and culture and all the things that we're going to possibly talk about. The collaboration that we myself and James are always talking about quite heavily as part of our organisation is really, it's kind of key, because I think with a lot of sort of brokerages, so to speak, it can be very much sort of brand led. Whereas with us, it's very much the agent themselves, and I quite like that. When people are making their decisions about what they're going to do, they'll look to see who's involved in it. And if there are top level people that are doing good numbers and also representing themselves in a professional way, I think that's really, really important. Because if you've got some people that aren't, it dilutes that heavily.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you look at, you only got to look at the US again. You look at Elizabeth Riley, and we did a call with her, didn't we, recently? And I think I was on the call, and she's a 9-time icon agent, which means she's in production, as they would say in America. But she's also brought, she's attracted, and we all know revenue share is part of the model. She's attracted like thousands and thousands of agents to her revenue share group, and they say in America, productivity is what actually brings agents. So I think there is a point in time when you can allow people with no experience to join. I think the teams thing, actually, you mentioned, James, is interesting. Where so for me, right, there's when I was a youngster in '97, the first time I went on evaluation was in 1998. So I started in August '97. Did 6 months of kind of learning how to book a viewing, registering an applicant, all that kind of stuff. And then Ian, my old boss, took me out. One of the old branch managers took me out on evaluation in High Over Way. I always remember it, 52 High Over Way. And I sat there, and Ian sat there next to me, and the transfer of trust happened in the living room, where he said, I'm Ian, I'm the manager, this is Adam, he's been in with us for 7 or 8 months, he's a really good guy, knows everything he needs to know, but hasn't done valuations before, so I'm going to be overseeing everything he does, valuing, listing, and advising you on the property, blah, 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 blah. That transfer of trust was crucial. And so that's called mentoring, right? And I think you can only do mentoring in the living room. others will claim, and I've had this discussion before with the likes of with other brokerage models, that mentoring can be done at a distance. I just don't see that. I don't think it can be. I think all of us were probably mentored by somebody in the living room when we did our first valuation in the UK. And so I think when you get to a critical mass, this is the bonkers thing, right? We've got competitor brokerages starting up saying they've got a mentoring program. You go, well, where are all the mentors? Like, you've got 40 agents. Like, how can you have mentors out of 40 agents? They're busy building their own business. So I think you probably need 1,000 agents before you've got enough people who want to be a mentor. I think 10% will want to be a mentor. And I think 90% will want to carry on doing their job, because 10% want to do rev share. 90% want to do their job, sell houses. I think
I was going to say, I'd say probably not quite 50%, maybe 40% of time currently is spent with helping other people. I think James and I have built quite quickly. I think hopefully it will continue on an upward trajectory. But one of the things which I think is really key is that if people come to join into eXp, that one of the things they come, they're not on their own unless they want to be. And there are people that 100% just want to be left alone and crack on, and that's absolutely their prerogative. That's fine, but the support is there. And I think when you look at to use to other sort of companies in the area, that it's very, because they don't have that sort of altruistic setup through revenue share, people, it's very much dog eat dog, or it's like a shark room, because everyone's just out for themselves, because there isn't a connection between the brokers. They don't, why would you care about someone else's success? Why would I spend an hour of my time with another broker answering their questions if all I care about is my own business? It's just, there's no point in it.
Yeah.
Because time is money. You've only got the same 12 hours in a day as everyone else, and there'll always be people that just want to focus on their business, and that's absolutely fine. Same thing about sort of talking about successes. I think generally within the UK mindset, we tend to be very reserved, and the Americans are very, very, they'll put out what they do in figures and everything else, and sometimes people think that this guy's bragging or whatever. It's like, I don't have any problem talking. James, you're very open with your figures with everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really good thing. Whereas a lot of the British mindset look at it and go, well, I don't want to talk about my successes, so I want to be like sort of quite closed. But I think it's very important that we're not, because it just shows what is possible.
Who is the perfect person to join eXp? What would you say is what you're looking? What are the attributes you're looking for, Adam? Especially when you first started, and has that changed at all?
I don't think it's changed necessarily. No, I think that I always say there's 4 things, right? So I do a welcome video when everyone joins. 4 things: hard work, consistency, follow the process, and resilience. I think if you've got those 4 traits, then everything else is, we can teach them how to fold a letter and put it in an envelope, but they've got to be the ones that actually go out and do it. We can teach them what to say when the customer opens the door and knocks, from a door knock, but they've got to be consistent enough to go and knock on the door, and they've got to go and work hard. And I say to people, I got criticised a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn by somebody who said that we were selling the dream of, self-employment and making all this money. I said, I've always said, whenever I talk to someone on a call, I always say, this ain't going to be easy. You're going to have to work harder than you've ever worked before. You can't go self-employed and then go, great, I'll take my foot off the gas. You've got to actually probably, it's a bit like this new European role that I got. I've been setting my alarm for 5:30 in the mornings now, because I've got more work to do than I've ever had. It's not like, I've had a pay rise and I get a little bonus now and I'm on a cushy number. I'm working harder than I've ever worked before. I could have stayed at the UK and I wasn't getting bored, but it's just running. I don't need to have too much of an impact on it. And that's what business is. In the early days, 5 years ago, I was up at 6 in the morning. I was working till 10 at night. I was setting the business up. I was cold calling. I was prospecting. I was, let's get agents on board. Let's help them. Anyone who was struggling, I was giving pep talks to, all that kind of stuff. And that then, as you build it, that fades away, and you can do less of that. And so that's the same with going from a branch manager at Foxtons to, self-employed. You are going to work harder than you've ever worked in your life. You have more stress, more challenges, more moments of this, I'm leaving, I'm not doing it anymore. I've had that. I've only been doing this 5 weeks. I've already had that a few times. I'm not doing this anymore. It's not worth it. but I'm resilient, so I will power through, and I'll get there in the end. And it'll take me a couple of years, but it'll be worth it in a couple of years. So yeah, I just think hard work. You've got to knuckle down. You've got to understand that you've got to work hard. You've got to be consistent. Follow the process. We are the most successful self-employed brokerage model, whatever you want to call it, in the UK. Listings per head of agent, sales per head of agent, income per agent. So follow the process that we've come up with. Like, we know what works. But be resilient, because you will want to sack it off in 4 months' time, or 6 months' time, or a year's time. John Woods was one of my pep talks, weren't you, John?
Yeah, I was going to say, you hit that 4-month rule, didn't you, John?
I did. I think, we all do it. I remember having the same conversation with you, James. That real bad problem with the Liz Truss thing. And the same thing. I was 4 months in. You're burning through the cash. I was going to say that when you've spent a long time in the corporate world and you become very successful in that sphere, you kind of think, well, not think, but a lot of people, they have a sense of grandeur, or a sense that it's going to be easy, because you're going to leave that where everything is given to you and is on a plate and comes at you.
Yeah.
And then you're thrown into the sort of the self-employment role, and realize that, you've got to go out there and hunt and, and kill what you eat and find listings and leads. And, and at the time it was certainly in London, it was a very, very dead space. There weren't many other brokers doing it at the time. So there wasn't a great deal to learn from. But, you get to that 4 months, and I think, I can't remember. I remember seeing a LinkedIn post about it, and you're kind of furthest away from your regularized paycheck that you've ever been before in your life, and you haven't really made any money yet. And so then you're looking at your burn rate, thinking, there's not much left now, and you start to get worried. And but then I've got 6 months down, or a 6 month post on LinkedIn where everything started to come, and I think there are a lot of brokers do give up at that. I do think there's also, it can happen again. At year one, you build, year two goes really, really well, and you can kind of think, oh, everything's all right, and sort of let things slip and not do the basics, not do the prospect, not follow the things that you used that got you where you were. And then you'll find that your numbers don't correlate to what you thought they were going to correlate to, or you get distracted or get lazy and sort of miss things off. So it's important to obviously keep reminding yourself of what got you to where you were, and not to let it slip. I think is a key point on that. But we've got the people that are coming from all different types, from different areas of expertise, and as that grows, that sharing of knowledge really helps to lift everyone up. And the speed at which brokers now, with the right attitude and mindset, there's the speed that they can get going now, and that we can help them to get going at. The knowledge that we can give them is accelerated enormously. So that 6 months can be taken down to 3 months. And I think, James, it took you 3 months to get a listing, right?
Yeah. When I started, I was very sporadic. Leaving a kind of corporate agent, there were leads left, right, and centre. When you kind of go self-employed, it was only really you and me, John, in London. I was on Canva for about a month, getting frustrated, trying to do leaflet design. I was like, why am I doing this? Yes, it took me 3 months to get a listing. I think I sold my first one, had a pipeline of 40k after month 7, and then the Liz Trust thing happened, went down to 10k. So I remember sitting in my lounge here crying, nearly kind of breaking down that I hadn't made any money that first year, but then it all kind of snowballs in the second year. I keep using the word life-changing. It feels a bit cheesy, and sometimes I don't like using it, but it has actually been life-changing for me financially already. And then now with the guys who are kind of bringing into the organisation, we're working our socks off to make it life-changing for them. If they want it to be, that is, if they want to do one deal a year, entirely up to them. But if they want to follow the process, work their socks off, we're doing all that we can to help them make it life-changing for them as well. Adam, in our organisation, so far it's all been UK agents. Obviously, in your organisation, you've got international agents as well. What was your process for helping them kind of come on board, even though they weren't in the UK, i.e. part of your organisation and not joining someone else's organisation?
Yeah, I was very lucky there, to be honest. I mean, I think being the first agent outside of North America, I started getting connections on day one. And frankly, they had no one else they could sign up with.
Okay.
So, but I kept in touch with them. I did keep in touch. I think that ongoing, relationship building. I'm a relationship building sales person. I'm not a closer on day one. So that kind of thing has come naturally to me anyway, because that's how I sell stuff, is through relationship, and getting to know people and getting people to trust me, know you, like, and trust you. You know, I've got mates who are closers there and then, and I'm just not that person. So actually, the recruitment side, if you talk about that, has become very easy for me, because I think actually the recruitment side is a longer burn than closing a listing. You know, because people don't want to sign up straight away. They don't want to go ahead straight away. So it's because it's a big jump. It's a big move. And so from when people first got in touch with me about that, then I was able to nurture them along and keep in touch. And there's one guy in Australia, it's taken 3 years to get him on board, 3.5 years to get him on board, but kept in touch with him and kept in touch. And he signed, what did he join in January, I think it was, this year. And then he's signed up like 2 or 3 other people as well now. And then, and then the other thing as well, you know, the wild thing is I, you know, there's 3 or 4 agents I've got now in Poland. I don't know who any of them are, but the guy that I did know knew those agents in Poland. And that's the bit about the revenue share. If we're talking about the revenue share specifically, it's you just don't know who the next person might know. We just don't know that the next person really picks up revenue share and runs with it, like you guys have done. You know, that's no one knew that. And if you look at most people around the UK, 90% of the UK not interested in rev share. I think last month, I should probably know this, I think we paid out rev share to about 50 people. So less than 60 people, so less than 10%.
Is it really? Wow.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Yeah. 50.
And there's obviously 600 active agents in the UK. I assumed it's going to be a lot more. Wow, incredible.
Yeah. I suppose that kind of fits in with the statistics across the globe from what I've heard when I've been in different rooms. And you know, we're travelling off to the States next week, I believe. Is it next week? Yeah, off to Miami for eXpCon, which is been incredible. But thinking about that, actually, just going back to your point about sort of, you know, not realising how big this thing is. I think a lot of people, even now, it's starting to get more well known. People are seeing eXp signs all over the country. But I think even within, you know, the general public, or certainly the estate agency world, we're still not as well known as we will be in a year or two's time. And I think when you go over to America and you just see the scale of what it is, then the penny really drops. And I think, James, it's your first venture over to the US, and I think it will really cement your mindset into it.
It does drop, but when you look at Middle America, the eXp is not known at all. You know, there's still a massive opportunity. I mean, if you found an agent in Lowestoft right now, a branch manager in Lowestoft, they would never have heard of eXp. They were like, huh? They won't even have heard of self-employed. No, they won't even know that in the UK right now. And the same goes for, you know, you go to Alabama, and they don't know that eXp exists. I mean, there's some, you know, California and Florida are the 2 biggest states, I believe, and Texas maybe. But outside of that, you know, eXp is still fair, and the Carolinas as well, obviously North Carolina, where Rich Thomasini has done a great job. Or AJ Media, or whoever it is, one of those, whole bunch of them basically. There seems to be, but again, it's because you typically get one influencer in that state or that area who then ripples it out, and that's the magic of the revenue share, right? Is that you find that one person in that state. But other than that, you know, there's still a hell of a lot of growing to go.
Yeah. How many agents have we got in the UK at the moment, Adam? And what's the long-term plan?
It's over 600. We did a press release about 600. I'm not technically allowed to say, but 620 something roughly. Long-term plan. I mean, I've asked to make predictions in the past, and I've made them, and I've had egg on my face a few years later. But you know, if we talk about 10% of the market, you know, 10% market share, that would be about 5,000 agents, we think. That'd be about, you know, 12 to 15,000 listings a month, 10 to 12,000 sales a month. You know, that would be 10% market share. That would be anyone to get to that is an extraordinary achievement. I mean, we're about 1.6% at the moment, so we're in the top 2 or 3. We've been jostling for first place. It's quite close. And a certain purple company seems to be going in the wrong direction, and we're going in the right direction. So we're kind of let's say 1.5%. So we're you know, 5 years, 1.5% market share is quite extraordinary, really. I mean, if you look at the Connells Group, they're probably about 10%, I would say, roughly. I don't know the exact, but when you look at all of their brands, they've got 50-something brands. They've got thousands of staff, hundreds and hundreds of offices, if not thousands of offices. And so we're nowhere near the size of the Connells Group. But yeah, if we can get to that sort of size, that's where I'd like to get to. Is bigger than the Connells Group, the biggest.
And then
business
internationally, is it now 26 countries that are in now? I mean, how many countries are we hoping to expand into?
I think it's 24 at the moment. I should know this, shouldn't I? But yeah, we've got 2 more that will be announced at eXpCon. I can't say, obviously, but they'll be announced at eXpCon, possibly a third as well. And, Glenn has stepped into leading international in the last few weeks. When there was a few changes a few weeks ago, about 2 or 3 months ago now. And so Glenn Sanford, who's the founder of eXp, stepped in. He's really driving to get more countries open. He's really kind of saying, what about this country? Have we got anyone here? And he's really pushing to get more countries open, because we haven't opened a country for about a year now, maybe just over a year. So, we're looking at more. I mean, who knows, 50, 100, 150, a million agents is what's been talked about at eXpCon over the last couple of years whenever I've been there.
Wow. I think that international connection is something which, one, I don't think people appreciate how easy it is with eXp, the way that it's set up to do business internationally. I've just recently been involved I went to the Lisbon conference. I met a guy there called Jason, who also has got quite a large international organization across the world. So one of the people that we met there at that conference is a guy in India, who then contacted me through Jason about 5 weeks later with a client of his that has a property to sell in Gloucester. And he said, can I help him out? Can I help selling? He was like, it's only 2 hours drive from London. Obviously, being Indian and being anywhere else, that's not far, but for us it is. But anyway, because of obviously the connections, and I got hold of Lee over in Gloucester, and it's a £5.5 million property with another £4.5 million one on top. And there's enough in the fee for us all to make a margin on it to actually be worthwhile. And those connections, we talk to agents a lot, certainly in London, that work for some of the large multinationals that say that they've got international reach. Well, as a brokerage, we have international reach across the globe for not only selling and collaborating, but for those people that have connections in other parts of the world to be able to join a global brokerage. If you go and join one of these new startup ones, and some of them aren't new, they've been going on for a long time. We've got close to 50 people in James and I's in our organisation of Roadshow. That's actually bigger than some of these small brokerages. And you go and get a list. Who have you got to deal with? You can't. We've got thousands of people that we can work with internationally, which I really like that, and it's something which we talk about quite a bit now as well, because we've got internet people from Italy. We've got people from different countries that want to do business across the world.
Yeah. After the podcast with Dunia, head of eXp Dubai, obviously that went over the socials. One of her agents in Dubai contacted me literally through Workplace. So easy to do. We've got a client that I'm going to be selling for in Earls Court. So I'm learning a lot more about the bigger picture. It's amazing how easy it is. When I worked at CBRE, the world's biggest real estate company, I loved working there, but it was so hard to go and speak to the guys one floor up about their client, about can we work together on your commercial client, can I help them to sell their development. It was so bloody hard, it was so frustrating. But eXp, it's so easy. Workplace, get anyone's name, 90,000 agents globally. How can I help? I'm learning a lot about how easy it is as well.
It's quite interesting how willing people are to do that as well, and I think that's probably instilled within the mindset of, well, the type of people that come to eXp tend to be very free with their time. Even if you're not, in someone's downline, they're still willing to give you time. And I've had a 2-hour call with Jason, who was showing me how to work on AI, for example, and how to use ChatGPT properly. Mainly so that I could help him to sell this place in London, but he still gave me that time, which was great. And I think going on that Dubai thing, we've just taken on instruction in TV studios at 1.5 million, and that's from a connection in Dubai who's was helping him buy a listing there, and he just said, "Oh, I've got something to sell in the UK. Here, have it." I was like,
a lot of that,
amazing.
I think a lot of that comes from Glenn, culturally. I think that if you texted Glenn right now, I mean, he won't be up right now because he's 8 hours behind, but if you message him on Workplace, the founder of eXp, of a $1 billion, $2 billion, market cap company, whatever the market cap is today, he'll message you back within 24 hours, typically. So that partly comes from them, but it also comes from the equity and the ownership of the business. There is no question in my mind that as a business, as an owner of the business, and I own shares at eXp World Holdings just like you guys do. Right, I've sold a few houses for 4 or 5 years just coming out of COVID. I've sold my best mate's house, my mum's house, and whatever. So I got gifted little bits of shares here and there. And then for bringing agents on who've sold their first house, who stayed for 3 years, I've been given shares for that. And so because I know that if I can refer to either of you, any of you guys, or anyone in the world, whether it benefits me or not financially directly, it's going to probably benefit me indirectly at some point in the future when eXp becomes, when the share price, hopefully, the share price can go down as well as up, I have to say, but hopefully, if the share price is $13 right now, it might be, $36 in 5 years' time. And that, I think that comes from that. I think that was a masterstroke by Glenn, and I get, it really frustrates me, and I don't want to turn this into an eXp sales pitch or a bashing of other brokerages, but all of these other brokerages that are popping up now, they're all the broker owners are in it for themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with that at all. But the agents that are joining them are not realizing that they're just helping someone else build their business. Whereas with eXp, you're helping eXp build their business, but you're benefiting off the back of that because you own shares in the business. Yeah. It's like, and nobody else. And these are the things that you kind of, James Hughes, you just said, you're learning about the bigger picture. That is part of the bigger picture that I don't think people do. You guys will know about that, but a lot of agents that are looking at models, they're not looking at the intricacies and the bigger picture. And what does this look like in 10 years' time if I join this brokerage? Oh, they're going to sell it, and they're going to sail off into the sunset, and I'm going to have helped them build that business. And what do I get out of that? Nothing. Okay, with eXp, I can help them build the business, and I get shares. So the bigger picture is so important to look at, because on the outside looking in, I get it. We all look the same, 70-30, some have got a cap, some have got 80-20 with no cap, and blah, 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 blah. But, they've got to look at the bigger picture, man. It's so important.
One of our agents, he's just joined, he's been an international sales agent. He's so excited. He's like, he knows people there. Are we in that country? Is it the same going into new countries now? Will it be the same as the UK model, or do you want people to be more established? Could they just find a one person an Adam Day, or do they need to find like a 20-50 sort of brokerage that's more, less risk in opening a new country?
This is a big question. This has been one that we've been talking about. So I work with Glenn every single day, like literally every day we have a meeting. And this has been something we've been talking about a lot. So the concern, the challenges of working with a 20, 30, 50, 100 brokerage team is that culturally they're not aligned with eXp. And so, I oversaw the merger between eMove and Tepelo in 20, whatever the year was. And I, a much smaller version, or maybe a bigger version actually, because there were two big companies. There was sort of 100 staff in one company and 100 staff in another. And their cultures were completely different, completely opposing. One was very customer focused, very, very customer focused, but zero sales. They wouldn't try and close on the phone. Tepelo, it was sell, zero customer service. And so you clash those two businesses together, and it was chaos, right? It was complete meltdown because one company wanted to do it another way, another company wanted to do it another way. And so that was probably the biggest challenge I've ever had, actually, because it was so different, clashing cultures together. So, the viewpoint is that if we find companies that don't culturally align with eXp, then it's probably not for us. We don't want to work with that. We'd rather find a single person, individual, who's got the reach, the credibility, the infamy, or the fame, if you want to call it that, and has got a bit of pedigree of starting businesses from scratch. To build up. So, but then they're more difficult to find those people because they've normally got their own business. They've normally built their own business. They've normally exited and they don't want a job. So it's a real tricky one. It's a real challenge to finding people. That's probably the number one challenge, I would say, on opening a country, is finding the right person to head it up and lead it.
That's good.
Any other questions, Jonathan or James?
No,
just maybe go for it. Go, James.
Just maybe touch on the teams. Obviously, as of last year, we've now have teams that are available. I considered doing it with John, who we did that mastermind in Lisbon. I'm now grateful that I'm just an independent agent with an organisation working as a team, but not technically a team. we now offer the teams. Can you talk about how eXp offers agencies to kind of come on board, and also the kind of traction that you are getting so far with that?
Yeah, so in America, so again, I've just copied what I can from America and iterated it for the UK market. So if we go back kind of a couple of years, Chris Abraham was the first person to come to me and say, Adam, I'm out. You know, I've done my time, I've loved it, but I want my own portal profiles. I want my own brand. I want my own logo. I want a team. I want people to work. I don't want to be slogging my guts out for the rest of my life. I want to leverage other people. Da 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 da. And so at that time, he couldn't do that under the current model. So I said, no. And Chris is an icon agent. Like, you know, he's the first ever winner of the best agent of the year, like John was last year. So absolutely didn't want to lose Chris at all. So again, straw poll of one. One guy came to me and said, I'm going to go. And it was kind of like, right, we need to sort this out now. So having been to America a few times, I kind of understood the team's model. Probably not as well as James George on the call, but so I said to Chris, don't go anywhere, don't do anything, we'll figure out the teams thing. So the teams, and so we had, what do we have? We had about 20 agents who qualified for a team on day one when we first put it, 19 I think it was, and we had 10 who were happy to do it, who wanted to do it. The other 9 were like, no, I'm happy where I am. Like you, James, just happy doing it on my own, just stay sort of solo, independent, if you like. So we rolled that out, and that basically gave someone like Chris, it gave him his own, profiles on the portals. It gave him his own sort of brand, if he wanted, his own strapline, his own logo, his own everything. But he was still powered by eXp, and he was still on the same deal with eXp, the 70-30 split, 24 grand cap. Any team members he brought in would be on a half cap. They would still join eXp and his team. But the difference is that a team member would join an established brand or person, if you like. So lead generation, offices, anything that eXp don't provide, Chris Abraham could provide now. Okay, that's kind of the concept. And so we had 10 agents who wanted to have a team and had a team, set it up. And then the next evolution from that was, how do we get existing estate agency businesses to come over? Because we've basically set it up so that, either solo agents at eXp can join and grow and get to a team, but why not offer the same to external agencies? So that was a bigger conversation with Glenn on the board last year, October. In fact, pretty much a year ago to the day, more or less, we had that meeting where I kind of pitched it to Glenn and the team and said, this is what I think we should do. And so we had to put certain parameters in place, because for us to run a team, it costs a certain amount of money, right? And so it costs us how much, shouldn't really say. So we then have to, obviously we're in business to make profit, but only a tiny profit. We only want like tiny margins. That's fine. That's our model from an eXp point of view. So we need businesses to be doing at least 150 grand a year in sales commission, because essentially what they're doing is they're transferring that sales commission income from them generating it to us invoicing it. And so now it's very difficult, because in London, for example, 150 grand might only be, it's basically cap plus 20 transactions is kind of like the number for an existing agent. So with an average commission of 3.5 grand in the UK, cap plus 20 transactions is 150 grand. So that's where that's come from. Like we don't just make this up because we fancy making it up. I'm very mathematical about everything. So roughly cap plus 20 transactions is about 150 grand. It's about 140 something grand, I think. So we made it 150 grand. In London, that's slightly different, because that might only be cap plus 4 transactions, in which case we're losing a lot of money on that. But we'll still talk to people and we'll figure out a way. What we've got is we have got an amount that we charge in the middle for a period of time until we start seeing revenue coming in, just to make up that shortfall. So it's quite complicated. I won't get into it on this call, but if anyone wants to talk to you guys about it, or me, or then just
if there is an estate agency, I'm just thinking of one person in particular I know that runs his own estate agency. What would the benefits be for him, and how would it work if he brought over his old, he's probably got maybe 5 agents in his office. They've got, a high street brand in that local area. They're established in their town. What would be the main benefits? How would I go about selling that whole company over to us?
It's very similar to the US. We pick up all the fixed costs. So apart from their office, so we would ingest their fixed costs. we would take on, the portal costs would go into us. But it's as close to acquiring a business without actually acquiring the business. So, when I sold my business to the Connells Group, they picked up all my costs. Like they just said, yeah, we'll take on your costs. They're going to go into what we pay for all of these different things, and you just got to go out and grow the business. And I guess it's very similar to that. And I often say to people, it's having the corporate benefits without the corporate BS, because you get all of the benefits. And we want to work as in the US, and it's kind of evolved from this now. But 5 years ago, they wanted to work for the mom and pop brokerage businesses, is what they used to say. The ones with 3 or 4 agents, and it was always about helping the independents and the little guy. They've now got brokerages who are joining that have got 900 agents, like in the US. So it's different now. It's evolved, but we would pick up all of their costs, their fixed costs, apart from their office. We'd help them move their staff over from being employed to self-employed. So we streamline their whole business from a cost perspective.
Would it be basically like the team model, where they'd obviously still keep the same brand that they had?
Yeah.
The owner of the company would be the team lead, and then everyone else would come in and have half cap, etc. Is that how it would work?
Absolutely, yeah. So the team, the owner of the company would become the team lead. The agents, the fee earning agents, so any listing agents basically are classed as fee earners. They would become self-employed agents within the team, and team members. They would have a half cap. They'd have a split with the team leader and a split with us. But again, that's the reason we're seeing people joining teams, is because Matt Billingham in Stourbridge, he joined with 2 agents. He's now got 5 agents, and he joined in January. Like, that's not many, really, but it's a lot for him. He's never had more than 2 agents in 15 years of business. Now all of a sudden he's got 5. Adam Mackay had 1 agent when he joined, was doing 400 grand worth of revenue. He's now got 5 agents in Sawbridge worth, again, because what he's done, he's able to go to the branch managers in the local areas and say, look, have you heard of this self-employed thing? Yeah, but don't want to go to eXp, too much of a jump. Okay, well, I've got a bridge that will help with that jump, where you can join a brand. I've got leads that I can give you. I've got an office you can come and have, social with other people, banter with other people, and I've got direct mentoring and coaching, which you're going to benefit from because I'm the team leader. So we're finding that it's probably easier to recruit into a team. Ironically, it's to recruit into eXp, because that person who's joining is getting more benefits, and they're happy to receive a slightly lower amount than the 70%, because they see the value they're getting in all the stuff that I've just mentioned. It's become really interesting watching that grow. And as I say, Adam Mackay's been around for 15 years. He's only ever had 1 valuer. He's now got 5 in the space of 7 months, 8 months.
What about eXp Luxury? Is that going to become, I don't even know if it is yet, but is it a thing in the UK yet? Because I've got lots of emails that I could do it in the US, for example. But
yeah, so eXp Luxury is in the UK. I'm at the moment we're building an eXp Luxury UK website specific to the UK. I think that's really important. We've been working in the background to provide the right sort of marketing collateral for a luxury style agent. We've been working to get part of the on the market deal was to get on Country Life magazine, or the Country Life magazine website. So we're just James Edition as well. We're on, so we've just confirmed that in the last couple of months. So we do now have a route for luxury properties to go and end up in the best publications, digitally and in print, through eXp. The main thing that I think a lot of our agents are waiting for is the UK website, because I think, if someone's got a £5 million property, they're not going to want to go to exp.uk.com. They're also not going to want to go to expluxury.com in America, where they can see loads of American properties and Americans' realtors' faces. They want to see local. They want to know that they've got local support, but with a global reach. And that's kind of the idea behind building that new website. So that should be out in about 2 weeks. I had an email today saying it's about 2 weeks from being completed. We've got 5 agents at eXp Luxury at the moment. I reckon that with the website that'll quadruple. I think we'll get into the 20s to 30s by the end of early next year, purely based on the UK website being built. I think that's the feedback I'm getting from agents anyway. So hopefully the feedback is correct. And again, this is the beauty of eXp, is agents gave me that feedback back in sort of the springtime, and so I've gone away and actioned it, because that's what the agents have told me they want. They want a UK website before they sign up to luxury. So we're going to deliver that, and hopefully those agents will then sign up to eXp Luxury and start going and taking on some bigger houses and getting bigger fees. So very exciting. And as well, just one thing, and again, sales pitch time, but the cap extends across both eXp Standard and eXp Luxury. It's not like there's a separate cap. It's the same cap for both sides. So you can either turn them left on the plane or turn right on the plane. It's the same cap, which is pretty cool.
Cool.
Nice.
Any other questions, Jonathan and James, before we go?
No, thank you very much for coming on, Adam. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
No worries.
Really appreciate you coming on, Adam. It's been fantastic to get you on, and you guys have a great time in Miami. Very jealous.
Yeah, can't wait.
We'll do.
I'm looking forward to it.
Forward to
See
it.
you there.
See ya.